Have you ever stepped into a new chapter of your life, full of hope and ambition, only to be met with cold stares and locked doors? That's exactly where Anne Shirley finds herself, alone, spirited, and undeterred, as she moves to the town of Summerside to take up her new role as principal at Summerside High School. It's supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to shape young minds. But instead, Anne walks right into the middle of a storm she never saw coming. The town is charming on the outside, with its winding lanes, crisp sea breeze, and that cozy little house called Windy Poplars. But beneath that picturesque surface, there's a deep-rooted tension, one family quietly pulling the strings of the entire town, the Pringles. Ever met people who are so influential, so interwoven into a town's fabric, that standing against them feels like going to war with the weather? That's the Pringle clan. And guess what? They don't want Anne there. Now here's what's fascinating, and is no stranger to challenge. She's walked a long, winding path from the red roads of Green Gables to get here. But the resistance in Summerside is personal. It's not just disapproval, it's sabotage. Her appointment as principal? The Pringles think it should have gone to one of their own. So they start making her life, quite literally, a living test of patience. The school board is split. Her students are wary. And the town, led by the Pringle influence, makes it clear she's not welcome. But let me tell you something surprising, Anne doesn't retaliate with anger. She leans into something deeper, something more powerful than revenge. She writes. Every night, she pours her heart into letters to her fiancé Gilbert Blythe. Letters full of quiet courage, small triumphs, and sharp observations. And through them, you see the true weight of solitude and perseverance. Isn't that something we all face in some form? That moment when we feel like outsiders, desperately trying to find connection in a world that seems indifferent. But here's where things get really interesting. Windy Poplars becomes Anne's safe haven. It's an old house with character, creaky floors, and two elderly women, Aunt Kate and Aunt Chatty, who take her in like family. And then there's Rebecca Dew, the housekeeper who's gruff, loyal, and unexpectedly sweet. It's these odd, imperfect souls who begin stitching and back together when the world outside feels too sharp. And slowly, something shifts. Anne, with her open heart and unshakable spirit, starts to win people over. Not through grand gestures, but through listening, understanding, and something we forget, the power of kindness. Even among the Pringles, cracks begin to form. Little moments, tiny gestures that hint at a changing tide. One student begins to soften. Another defends her. And then, through a series of heartwarming and at times hilariously awkward encounters, Anne begins to unravel the town's hard shell. There's this one moment, you won't forget it, when Anne helps a lonely girl find her confidence during a school recital, and you realize just how deeply she's starting to leave her mark. Not just on the students, but on the soul of the town itself. But of course, nothing comes easy. There's a relentless back and forth. Every victory is hard-earned. The Pringles, especially the older ones, cling to their pride. They host dinners just to humiliate her. They spread rumors. And yet, Anne finds allies in the most unexpected places. A shy librarian. A heartbroken widow. A stern teacher with a buried sense of humor. It's like watching sunlight slowly pour into a room that's been shut tight for years. And all the while, Anne's letters to Gilbert continue. Pages filled with humor, vulnerability, and those small, unforgettable snapshots of life. Like the time she gets caught in a thunderstorm and ends up drenched and laughing with a child who had never laughed before. Or when she comforts a woman who's just lost everything and realizes sometimes the greatest strength is simply sitting with someone in silence. What makes Anne of Windy Poplars so special isn't just Anne's charm, it's her resilience. Her refusal to become bitter. Her ability to see past people's armor and into their wounds. You start to realize something profound. People often act out of fear, not malice. Even the Pringles. Anne, instead of fighting fire with fire, chooses something riskier, empathy. She doesn't force change. She nurtures it. And honestly, isn't that a lesson we all need? That the hardest people to love often need love the most? And just when you think Anne's journey is settling, a new challenge surfaces. A young girl in town, utterly neglected, clings to and like a lifeline. It's messy, emotional, and through it, you see and not just as a teacher or fiancé, but as a healer. Someone who, despite her own wounds, finds the courage to care for others again and again. The pace quickens. The stakes rise. And yet, every turn of the page feels like a deep breath. A reminder that grace can exist in even the most hostile places. So what do you think happens next? Does Anne finally break through the last of the Pringle pride? Does Summerside finally embrace her as one of their own? Or does something even more unexpected unfold? Something that makes her time in this quiet, conflicted town unforgettable? The answers are coming, and trust me, you're going to want to hear how this all wraps up. Because just when you think things are smoothing out, life throws another curve. Summerside begins to thaw, yes, but it doesn't happen in a dramatic, fireworks kind of way. It's more like winter melting into spring, quiet, gradual, and full of subtle magic. One by one, the townspeople begin to see Anne not as an outsider, but as someone who belongs. And the final turning point? It's not a loud confrontation. It's a school event. Simple, joyful, and deeply revealing. And, with her usual flair, helps organize a charity concert for the community. It's supposed to be small, modest, but what unfolds is extraordinary. Students who once mocked her now take center stage with pride. Parents who used to scowl in the back row suddenly find themselves clapping, even smiling. And somewhere in that sea of reluctant acceptance, a miracle happens. Elizabeth Pringle, one of the oldest and most rigid members of the clan, stands up and publicly thanks Anne. No sarcasm, no hidden jabs, just honesty. The air shifts, the applause gets louder, and you realize it's over. The battle she didn't ask for, but fought anyway, with patience, humor, and compassion, is won. But here's the part that hits hardest. Anne doesn't gloat. She doesn't even think of it as a victory. In her final letter to Gilbert, she doesn't talk about conquering Summerside. She talks about how much she's grown. How the town changed her just as much as she changed it. And isn't that the truth of every hard season in life? That sometimes the struggle isn't about proving something to others. It's about discovering who you are when no one's clapping, when everything feels uphill. Anne of Windy Poplars isn't about grand romance or epic drama. It's about the quiet victories that happen in kitchens, in classrooms, in letters sent under lamplight. It's about the messy, beautiful way that humans connect. And most of all, it's about one woman who, through every cold shoulder and closed door, chose to stay soft, stay hopeful, and stay kind. By the time you reach the last page, you don't just admire Anne, you feel like you've walked beside her. You've shared her lonely nights, her awkward tea parties, her silent battles, and her rare, hard-earned joys. And as she prepares to leave Windy Poplars and step into a new life with Gilbert, you realize she's ready. Stronger, softer, and more herself than ever before. So the next time life puts you somewhere uncomfortable, among people who don't get you, remember Anne. Remember the girl who walked into a town full of shadows and quietly filled it with light. Not by force, not by fighting, but simply by being someone who refused to stop believing in goodness, even when the world gave her every reason to. Feel like you're meant for more, but don't know how to get there? You're not alone. Every success story starts with doubt and a spark. The Self-Made Millionaire, Zero to Wealth isn't just a book. It's your roadmap to purpose, confidence, and success, built on real lessons from real millionaires. One reader said, "It didn't feel like a book. It felt like my future talking to me." Inside, you'll find the exact mindset and principles used by the world's most successful people. No fluff, just real, life-changing wisdom. Ready to take the first step? Get it 100% free. Just subscribe and comment "book" below.